everyone, it's Sammy from Sammy's Sweet Life, and today I've got a March budget update slash moving expenses update for you guys. This month was completely crazy. We blew our budget completely out of the water, and there were three reasons why. The first one being we moved, so there's a lot of expenses associated with moving. Also, we found out I was pregnant and I have had major morning sickness. We've ordered takeout a bunch. We've gone for random grocery runs a bunch. It's really just like day to day what I can eat and can't eat, what I'm craving, what I think I can stomach, and we've just kind of gone crazy with that budget. We're also eating out and grocery associated expenses with the moving process. So the few days leading up to moving, we were out of food, so we ate takeout a bunch, and then the days of actually moving and being here in the new house, we again had lots of takeout, lots of groceries to buy, and so both of those categories were just above and beyond normal. And then we also blew our budget up because we booked our vacation, and I'm really excited about that. I'll talk more about that when I get to that section of my notes. So for one thing, we did include all of our moving associated expenses into our budget, so every dollar is accounted for as far as how much we spent on moving boxes, how much we spent on the mover, any kind of hookup fees or anything we had to purchase for moving associated expenses came out of this budget, but we did not include the earnings back. So we ended up having three different earnings. So we got money on the sale of the house. We also got some refund back from our homeowner's insurance. We also got some of our escrow back. So all three of those major things are a very large chunk. It included our equity and down payment and all the stuff we put in for future property taxes. We got all that back. And so if I had included that in our budget, we would more than exceed our yearly savings total, but it wouldn't be accurate because that's all money we paid. Everything that we got back was money that we had already paid, so I didn't feel right putting it into the budget. All of that money is already allocated into savings and investments, so we're just not even messing with that money. It's not like we got a windfall or anything. We just don't even really consider it, especially as far as the budget goes. Usually I have a set savings goal I plan on hitting every month. We totally didn't do that. We actually went in the red. We dipped into our excess in our checking account for the almost exact amount of our vacation deposit and also our hiring of the movers. So those two expenses totally pushed us into the red, and it's totally okay because it balances out in the end. It will more than make up for it, and we had plenty in our checking account to account for these expenses. We knew these were coming, so it wasn't a huge surprise. Also, in the middle of all this, we booked our vacation, so adding that in this month also just added to the budget chaos that happened. As far as the impact of the house, I told you guys ahead of time, like selling the house, we were not gonna make money off of the house. We would be lucky if we got all of our money back. Well, we didn't get all of our money back. We did end up losing money. We knew we were gonna lose money, and that goes back to my whole thing about home ownership versus renting. I feel like home ownership, especially in the traditional way where you have a 15-year mortgage or a 30-year mortgage and you're only putting 20% down, you're getting scammed. Like, you're never gonna see that money back. It's just so blatantly obvious when you look at the numbers how much of a sham the whole American dream thing is. And that's not to say home ownership isn't great. There are a lot of benefits to home ownership, and we do plan on owning a home again at some point, but strictly for the numbers' sake, if you have a big mortgage, you're just not gonna see any of that money back. You're gonna lose your butt, and you'll be lucky if you sort of break even in the end. And I'm saying this, I'm looking at like our monthly payment. Only a little percentage of that actually went to paying off our loan. Most of it went to interest and property taxes. In our case, our property taxes are huge. To give you an idea of huge, we paid about $1,000 a month just in property taxes. That's on top of our other rate. So you can see the property taxes here are insane, and that's a big factor. If you live in a place that has high property taxes, that's rolled into your mortgage, and that's $1,000 more, and that's just how it is here. Housing is crazy here. But I pulled up an example from thenest.com to kind of get my point across, because I know people are like, home ownership is the best thing ever, and if you can afford to buy a home, you should buy a home because it's a good investment, blah, blah, blah. I don't believe that anymore. Like, my eyes have been opened after selling 2 houses and seeing how much money goes to realtors. That's another thing. Like, realtors make bank, and that's like where a lot of profit goes, is just to the realtor. So I see why this myth is perpetuated, because the realtors make bank, the banks make bank, and the homeowners think that they're doing great when they get their money back from the sale, but that doesn't include all the money they've put into the house. So going back, I'll link this example down below. So for example, if you had a $250,000 house and you had it at a 4% interest rate, which right now is a really good interest rate. I don't think you could even get a 4% interest rate at this point in time. And let's say you put 20% down on the house. If you ended up paying it for 30 years, that house would end up costing $393,739. So almost $400,000 for a $250,000 house. So tell me, in 30 years, is your $250,000 house going to almost double in resale value? Probably not. Probably most areas won't inflate the housing prices that much. So you're looking at spending $143,000 in interest, money that you're just paying to the bank that you probably won't see back. And that's if you live in the house for 30 years, and if you sell it sooner than that, you probably won't make as much back. And for one thing, a lot of people don't live in the same house for 30 years. In our case, we've not lived in the same area in our adult lives. We've moved twice now, so that really doesn't bode well for us buying a house and living there for 30 years. That's just including the 2 states. But I'm just saying most houses don't usually double in 30 years as far as like the sale value. I just don't see that happening in most areas. Maybe in a really inflated area like here, maybe they do, but I don't think that's most houses. And also in that 30 years, you're putting on a new roof. You might be replacing water heaters multiple times. You might be replacing the central air. You might even be replacing windows. Windows don't last forever. So these are really hefty expenses that you'll have to include. That's not including like every day-to-day maintenance. That's not including upgrading anything. That's just flat out main things that have to be replaced over time. And just for argument's sake, let's say we bought this house. Well, the garage door motor went out when we were here our first month, and also the double wall oven went out the first month we were here. I know our landlord guy got quoted $3,000 to replace the double wall oven, and I don't know how much he paid to get the garage door replaced, but I know it was probably about 500 bucks. So just looking at moving in our first month, we might have been slammed with $3,500 worth of unexpected expenses because things break down. It just happens. So when you're a homeowner, you're on the hook for those things. And when we're a renter, we just get to sit back and be thankful that we didn't have to pay $3,500 to replace the things that just randomly went out. It's just a weird, unlucky thing that both things happened the first month we moved in. Literally the first time I used the oven, it malfunctioned and did not work. So after selling the second house, I'm convinced more than ever that homeownership with a big mortgage is not for us. If we are going to stay in Austin long term, I hope that we will buy a house, but I'm not sure we want to buy a house here because of the property taxes being so high, because of us not being able to reasonably pay cash for a house. Most of the houses in our old neighborhood and almost all of the houses in this new neighborhood are $500,000 and up. And that's like the low end of houses. I think this neighborhood's a little bit more expensive, so it's really hard to find a house under $500,000 in this neighborhood. That's just how it is in Austin. We could be in a cheaper part of town for sure, but just not be in the school districts we want to be in. I'm not sure we want to throw that much into a house, so we're looking at not being here long term if we decide to buy a house, or just renting for a while. But so far, renting has been really freeing, especially with things going wrong in the house. Just being able to call the landlord and get things taken care of has been great, not having to be on the hook for those things. Anyway, you're either convinced homeownership is the best thing ever or homeownership is a scam. I know I'm gonna upset a lot of people when I say the homeownership thing, but it's just true when you look at the numbers a lot of times. You might be in a lucky market where you can, make a profit on your house. Let's say you paid $300,000 for the house and you get to sell it for $350,000, so you made a profit, but 6% of the price goes to the realtor, and then closing costs are hefty, and then you have to think of all of the interest you've paid over the course of your loan thus far. So did you really make anything, or did you just get most of your money back? That's really what it comes down to. Most people think, oh yeah, I made money because I sold my house for more than I paid for it, but you have to look at all the costs. Like even going to sell our house, our closing costs were ridiculous. Like our homeowners association, I think they charged over $1,000 just in transaction transfer fees and whatever BS that they had. It's just ridiculous to go to sell a house, and now my other washing machine's beeping. We have a pedestal washer underneath our regular washing machine, so it's beeping now to say I can put in fabric softener. Anyway, so moving on from that heated discussion, I could talk about that for a long time because I'm so aggravated that I really fell into it. Like, I'm like, why would we rent? And I still kind of have that stigma, like, ooh, renting, that's only for people who are trying to get on their feet. That's only for people who can't afford to buy a house. That's only for people saving up a down payment. Like, everybody wants to buy a house. Why would we rent, you know? And I still have that stigma, and it's hard to lose that. And you know, buying a house in our circumstances is going to lose us money. Like, we lost money on that other house. Even if we had stayed there a long time and the value went up, we would still not make money off of the house. We would be lucky to get our own money back. So anyway, let's look at the way our budget changed, just immediate changes to our budget based on moving. We moved from a certain part of town that was out in the boonies to a more established part of town closer to the city, and that has an effect on one of our numbers. So for one thing, we don't have a home warranty anymore, so that's $62 that we no longer pay. For another thing, I had mentioned that we wanted our rent to be a little bit cheaper than our mortgage. We ended up getting this exact same rent as what we used to pay for our mortgage, so we totally broke even for that part of the equation. And we did that to just go ahead and be in the exact neighborhood we wanted to be in. It's a very ideal location, especially for Johnny's work, but for other things as well. It's just really close to the city, got really good schools, and we just, if we're gonna live in the city, I wanted to be in the exact neighborhood I wanted. We ended up paying a little more in rent than we would have if we went to a surrounding neighborhood, but I'm totally okay with that. I love the house. Like, the more we've been here, the more I love it, aside from like the oven and garage issues we've had. So we used to pay an HOA, which was about $60 a month. Now we don't pay that anymore. Our homeowner's insurance went to renter's insurance, and it was about $115, and now it is $14, but that was actually escrowed into our mortgage. So that ends up being like $14 more that we're paying, because now we're paying it outright versus it being wrapped up into our mortgage payment. And then the one number that actually affects where we're living, we get way faster internet for way cheaper of a price. We were paying about $74 for internet, and it was a pretty slow internet for these days. And now we're paying about $45 for, I think it's like triple the speed now. So we have like super duper awesome fast internet for about 30 bucks cheaper a month, which is awesome. And so adding all those together, we are saving $137 a month being in this house versus the other house. We have none of the owning a home risks, which is awesome. And we're closer to my husband's work, which is awesome. Like, you can't put a number on that. Like, his commute is just dreamy now. And I will do a like spilling the tea video about the area of town we were in before and why we chose to walk away from that neighborhood and that house specifically. I'll do a whole thing about that in a separate video. I've got to get Johnny's full opinions on it. I mean, I think I know exactly what he's gonna say, but I want to make sure I have all his notes, make sure I have all my reasons, and then I'll do that video for you guys. So be looking for that soon. But to be in a more desirable place and be saving a little bit of money every month is really awesome. And that's not including utilities. This is a smaller house closer to the city, so I think our utility rates will be a little bit better because we're not way out in the boonies, but I really don't know how that's gonna play out. So I just put utilities to be determined. So we'll see if they even out or get a little bit better than they were. So that's all the house stuff in a nutshell. Let's go ahead and talk about our March categories. They were atrocious, and I'm embarrassed with some of these numbers. We just ate out way too much and bought way too many groceries, and also a couple other things. Johnny had to take his car in. Livy grew out of like everything, so she had to get shoes and new clothes. I had to get some maternity shorts. I'm actually wearing them. I didn't wear them in my week 10 update last week. I've got my shorts on, and these ones go underneath the belly, so they're not bothering me as much. It's actually 90 today, so I'm definitely gonna live in these shorts any days that's hot like this. I love that they don't put pressure on my stomach, where all of my other pants now are starting to feel really tight. And also, we booked the vacation, so let's walk through the numbers here. We went over on groceries by $219.14, and that's having to replenish all the stuff that last month we used up. We really tried hard last month to use up all our groceries, and then now we replenished them. We also went on so many grocery runs because I needed soups, or I was craving only one thing and everything else made me feel nauseous, and we just went with it. And same with the eating out. We went over on eating out by $158.93. So that is a lot of money just on food, and we just did what we did. And this month we're definitely cutting back because we went way overboard last month. We do have a sinking fund for clothing, so this just comes out of that sinking fund. But again, this month it hits, so it really hits the budget hard when we're getting all these coming out all at once. It just affects my bottom line this month. We spent $136.56 on clothing. In our household category, we spent over by $155.50, and that's moving expenses. We do have a car maintenance sinking fund, so this just came out of that, but again, it affects the bottom line this month. $137.32 is how much it costs for his car. Olivia now gets her own section in the budget for learning and educational things. We went over by $27.08, and that's because we got obsessed with perler beads this month. Her and I have both been playing with them, and they are so much fun, but we bought a bunch of them, and it's a little bit into April. We bought more this month as well, so we really should be good for a long time now. And then our vacation came out. It's the first installment of our rental home. It is $1,731.51. So our next installment I think is like $1,500. And we're gonna go way over budget in our vacation category this year because we probably won't take one next year. I am pregnant and I don't think we're gonna do the vacation next year. So this year we decided to book a 2-week vacation. So I'm super duper excited. We're just going back to the beach. We're just renting a house on the beach and I'm so excited. We still have to get flights. It's kind of like our last hurrah before the baby gets here, and I'm just super excited. I'm dreaming of the beach already. So yeah, it was a crummy month as far as numbers for the budget, but it was actually a really good month overall because we got all of our other money back. So as far as our like savings and nest egg and all that stuff, I want to talk about it just a little bit. I'm not going to give specific numbers for anything, but I have a certain amount that I want dedicated in our savings. We have high yield savings now. We ended up opening that in January, but I had a goal to open a high yield savings, and I really want a certain amount in that high yield savings. And then after that point, I want everything else going into investments. So we are almost to that point that we have the exact amount I want in that high yield savings. We also have a set amount in our checking that also includes our emergency fund. So it has a few months of expenses in there. It can cover any major thing that comes up. It's just easy to get to money. So we can just use that anytime we need to, and I don't have to worry so much as far as like sticking to our exact numbers because I know we have the padding in that checking account. And then anything above that, I want to go into investments. So we have been slowly over the course of the last few years just investing more and more, and all the while trying to bump up that savings to be the number that I really want it to be. And also this whole time we have been putting in the maximum amount in the retirement. So that's just something that has been going on. It comes straight out of my husband's paycheck. We never see the retirement money. It's just its own thing. And we've been saving out of the other money that comes in. I feel like we're definitely getting to a point now where we have the nest egg security that I want. I just want a certain amount in the bank, and I want a certain amount in the checking, a certain amount in the savings, and we're maxing out that retirement. And so I feel really comfortable with our numbers now. And so now I just feel really comfortable with our numbers. Johnny feels really comfortable with it, and he really is happy that we don't have the burden of the mortgage. We're paying the same amount, but we're not in debt. It's such a hefty mortgage loan that it was suffocating a little bit. So we definitely never want to do that again. We just don't want to have hundreds of thousands of dollars rolled into a loan. If you can pay all cash for a house, that's totally a no-brainer. I would totally buy a house if they were affordable here. We would totally strive to save cash and buy a house here. I think that's when home ownership is a great thing because you don't have the mortgage, you're not paying the bank, and you're not making your house cost almost double what it should cost, throwing so much money into paying the bank. But anyway, I think that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope I didn't tick you off too much about the home ownership rant that I went on, but that's just how I'm feeling after selling 2 houses. Give me a thumbs up and subscribe, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.